All right, welcome back. We are Game 2004. That's Game Engines 2 in the winter of 2026 at Georgian, and it is very loud in here, but it's week 3, part 2 of our broadcast and recording. And in this part, what I want to talk about is some of the stuff that I talked about before, which was, hey, what about if I have these materials and I want to make them a tint? What do I do? So we've done this work before, right? Where we have these tints and we multiply them by the dirt, as an example, by the texture, and then you get, whenever you multiply something, by the way, I want to talk about this. It is a Photoshop process. If you actually go to multiply in Photoshop, there is a multiply node in Photoshop you can use. It actually darkens the result. That's what it does. It's a darken process. It darkens. And why? Because what's happening is whenever you mult, you actually combine 2 pixels together. This is going back to our friend Connor, right? If I multiply 2 pixels together, two colors together, then I'm going to get a darker color, typically, all right? Especially if I have some value, because our values go from 0 to 1. So if I multiply two values that are less than 1, what's going to happen is the values are going to go down, right? They're going to be smaller values, which means smaller values are going to be darker. 100%. That's what multiplying does every single time, right? So there's ways of doing lightening, like for example a 1 minus, which allows us to do lightening. And so again, there's a lot of stuff around this, and we could spend all semester talking about how to modify things in terms of value, but this is not a Photoshop class, although it's very related to that. So I want to, right now, I want to create a named, so add named reroute node for each one of these things, and this is going to be called dirt tint. And this will be grass tint. And this will be sand tint. Notice when I do this, which is really cool, what Unreal Engine does for you, it creates a color. So each of these things actually has a color. Now, smartly, you could change your color manually yourself. So if you want to make it so that it's the same color as this, you could, right? So these are so they'll match. It's up to you. I don't care about that. There's rock tint. And if you made a mistake, you can always go over here and change it. And that'll be snow tint. Add named reroute node. Snow tint. Okay, there we go. So we've got our tints. And what I want to do is I want to be able to multiply these things by the base color to get our layer blend, right? So again, I can expand this a bit and pull this out. One thing we could do for all of these is make a named reroute node as well, right? So we can make named reroute nodes for all of these. Now it's good practice. This is all good practice stuff when we're dealing with materials, because later on, if we want to do any process, like for example, I want to saturate a material, I want to lighten a material instead of darken a material, which is what we're doing right now. We can do all those things by taking the material. We don't want to drag wires around everywhere. So that's why you can do something like drag this out and go something like add named reroute node, and then call it something that's neat. Like for example, you could call it dirt D. So we know it's the diffuse dirt that we want. And then I can disconnect this node for a second, because we're going to use this. And then if I want to use the tint, so here it is. Here's the tint, and here's the dirt D. I could do I just type it in, dirt tint. Take a look, it comes up, right? And then I can multiply these together by using a mult node, multiply, right? So here's multiply, and then here's dirt. And then if I take this node and put it into the dirt layer, you can see that this is a lot easier than me doing, dragging this all the way here and all that stuff. It's just a pain in the ass, right? So what does this look like? What does it do for us? Does it actually do anything for us? And if I look here, and if I look at my dirt now, back to here, you can see it's darker, right? Sometimes we want this. We want to be able to darken our dirt or whatever we want to do, especially things like I want to make this a little bit more gray. I can have all those same colors around if I want to or not, right? Remember that the landscape the material instance here, right, for my tint. It's still here, right? So I can kind of like go to dirt tint. Look, it's actually available here for my dirt tint. And I can choose what that's going to look like. I can check this on and change the color to whatever I want. Okay? Which is kind of neat. So that's tint. I don't know why the other ones didn't show up. Let me go. Maybe I didn't put them on. They're probably somewhere else. Let's go back to landscape and save. And I believe grass tint. Is that part of the tint group? It is. What happened? Yeah, so it looks like only one went. And they didn't go here or anywhere. That's weird. Oh, that's, and it could very well be because I'm not using the underscore. Sometimes what I find is it's very sensitive to what you call it. So for example, my parameter name is this, grass tint. And I bet you if I did one of these and I made it grass underscore tint and it's applied and saved, does it show up now? Huh. Weird. It should show up here in the tint area. Weird. But anyways, that's I'm showing you it should work, you know, but it does for dirt tint, but not grass tint for some reason. I'm wondering why it doesn't do that. Does it do it for you? Because that all it is the parameter name. Sand tints, rock tints. Now it might be, and this is snow tint. I might change this to something else. Maybe we'll change the group. Oh, that's weird. Because it should show up in the material instance. Just doesn't. Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. Nope. Weird. And look, only roughly, all the texture showed up, but let me just try one more thing. I'm going to change the grass tint to, instead of, we'll make another group called tints. And let's see if that is going to show up now. Apply and save. Nope, not even that group. That group showed up. Weird. Anyway, but that's the way you do it. It is the way you do it. So, so now that we have these, we can do the same thing for grass tint. So I can just kind of do names parameter, grass tint. Here it is. And then I can take the name thing here, which is dirt grass D. So add named reroute parameter, grass D, and then get rid of all this. Oops. Get rid of all this, and then multiply these together. And then we're going to get something that actually is better than what we had before. So there's the grass tint. You can see it's darker than what it was before. Again, it really depends on if you like that or not, if it's too much or whatever. And that's what we could do for all of them. Okay, I'm not going to do that here. I'm going to do, actually, I'll just do it for rock because I think we need to do that with rock. So again, rock tint. I'll do this one too. So this will be called add reroute. Oop. Add named reroute parameter. We'll call this rock D, and then we'll take this one, uncheck that one, and get rock tint. Here it is, and we'll multiply those together. And when we get that multiplier, then we should get a darker version, actually a more gray version of my rocks. And we do. See? Now again, if you don't like it, like if it's too gray for you, or if it because we tint it, you see it's like it's got a lot of normal power. Again, what you could do is you could create some flatteners for this one as well. Let me show you how that works. I'm not going to do them all because we don't have time. But I think you get the idea. So I want to do the same thing for these ones. These are normals. And I just want to do the one for the rock. I want to be able to flatten the normal for the rock. So again, what I want to do is I can create a constant for this. So I 1 and then left click. And I want to call this, flatten normal, right? Rock. And then now that I have this, I can make this into a rock, add names, reroute node, we'll call rock in. And then what I want to do is I want to use the flatten node. So if I type in flatten, you can see there's a flatten normal node that we used before. I can pass in the normal and I can pass in the flatness value. And then I can use this inside of my layer for rock, as opposed to, I'm just going to, kind of draw this in here instead of like the way I had it before. Okay, and we can use a reroute node for this one if we want to. For now, I'm just leaving it like this. So this is what gives me the option to change my normal. Now I want to put this inside of my parameters. So let's use that in a parameters group. Actually, I think I have a parameters group that I can pull down. Or properties group. There it is. And now, what I should be able to do is see that in my landscape. There it is. There's my flattened normal rock. And I can change that to something like 0.0 or 0.15. Might be a good value for that. So let's see what that looks like. So save. And if I go back, now you can see that the normal values are changed. If you want to see them in real time, another thing to do is pull this out, this thing here, and then I can go back here and change the values in real time on the material instance to see what this looks like. So let's see what it looks like if it's deeper. Look, take a look at this, right? So you can actually, in real time, you can see what the effect is. If I want to make it less bumpy, as an example, maybe I can increase that value. If I make it too much, it'll become more like this. So you can really adjust the rock value by just sliding this thing. Even if if you use negative values, you can also do that. That'll push it in as opposed to pull it up, right? So again, I suggest something low, like maybe even something like 0.5 would be a good value, it looks to me. So I don't want a huge normal on this one. The rocks look too crazy, and I think this might be look a little better than a normal value that's too high. So again, what you could do, I'm not going to do that here, you could do a normal value for each of these things. Like, for example, if you think that this deserves more of a normal value or smaller, you can make these rocks look a little bit nicer or whatever. Okay? And that's great. So I've talked about a couple things about landscape painting materials, right, and landscape materials. Now what I want to do is I want to talk about foliage. Okay? So remember what our structure is. If I was going to paint foliage and all that kind of stuff, I might want to go, I always want to try and go from big to small. So again, foliage for me would mean I want to do like trees first and then grass, not grass first and then trees. Grass first and then trees, that means you're going to have trees that intersect with grass. Maybe that's not what you want, okay? Grass is also, a lot of grass, if you put tons of grass around, can be computationally expensive because each one of these things is a static mesh. Okay, now the good thing about this is it uses nanite, right? Which is something that we can adjust. All right, so back to this. So now that we have landscape material, we'll save everything. We can close these off. I'm not going to monkey with these right now. Those are where I'm going to stay for today. You guys can continue and make it better if you don't like what I've done exactly. The next part that I want to add in is foliage. Let's move to the foliage mode. And in foliage mode, when you first come here, you're going to see that there's an area here that says drop foliage here. Okay? So we have some things that we have here. You can also make your own if you want to. If you want to make your own plants and stuff, you can click on this foliage button, and then you can select, static mesh or actor foliage, whatever you want. You can actually add static meshes in here as well, like a statue as an example instead of this. Whatever you want, or rocks. Right? As long as it's a static mesh, it counts as foliage, and then you can add it in. Okay. one thing that I want to do here is I want to look and see what the foliage that I have. I have a couple of them. I have black alder. So if I look at the black alder folder, there's foliage, and there's two of them, two folders. One of them is Simple Wind, and another one is Pivot Painter. I'm going to use Pivot Painter, and you can see that there are quite a few trees. Now, I don't want all of these trees, but notice that there are some that say forests and some that say sapling. So saplings are quite small, and then forest is what I want to do. So I'm going to start with this one. So again, I don't want to choose all of them, but maybe these two look kind of like two I want to use. So I want to kind of pull these in. So I'm going to drag and drop here, and drag and drop this one here. You can see that I've got two of these now, right? But they're dimmed out. That means I'm not really drawing anything with them. If I go over here and I can't draw anything, okay? As soon as I click onto them though, like this, right? Once they clicked on, they become, they're not gray anymore. By the way, if they're too small for you to see, you can increase the scale of what they look like here so you can actually see what they look like. If you ever hover in, they actually show you a little preview of what these things look like, okay? Now if I try and if I paint, you can see that I've got a pretty big paintbrush and it'll be too much, right? If I start painting, right? So a couple of things to note about how the painting works when it comes to setting up your foliage and everything else, right? So there's select, there's single. If I want to choose something like this one, if I want to choose a single tree to put in there, and I don't know why, but mine aren't working. Are you working? I can't get mine to work for some reason. And I wonder if it's missing something when I kind of convert it over. Is the mesh not good? Is it? There's no mesh? Come on. No. That's bad. What happened? The mesh disappeared? Oh, that's terrible. That's a terrible thing that happened. Right? 7 gigabytes and there's no mesh. All right? I tried, guys. I really did. I wanted to give you a good experience, but you know, I failed in transferring over the stuff, which is bad. How about in Simple Wind? Is there anything here? Oh my God. I know, right? Well, here's materials. Do they have the material? Yeah, they have the materials in there. And here's the forest, sapling, and seedling. Let's go forests. Yeah, there's the materials. Some materials are there nicely. How about the textures? Textures are there for the trunk and everything else. But where's the actual geometry? Yeah. Why? There's our static meshes right here. But they're not connected? What the hell? Well, we can fix this. I mean, it's a pain in the ass, but we could fix it. I'm going to fix two. I'm going to fix this one, and I'm going to fix this one because we know what they are. We know what the problems are. So let's do that. First of all, let's try it and see if I can get to it. And maybe what we need to do is re-import because here's something that's probably happened, guys. I didn't probably import these properly. We just like loaded them. So probably what they need to do is re-import all these assets. So I wonder if I just did one of these. Yeah, nanites checked on them. That's weird, man. Look, that's even like grayed out now, static mesh. Let me take a look at that. Re-import mesh. See, look, it said failed. All right, failed. Even the materials are all messed up, right? World grid material. Oh. World grid material, does it even exist? I think it should. Failed. All right, failed, my friends, failed. I failed to do this. SM Black Alder Forest. Okay, let's try that instead. So I'm going to go back to the foliage. I mean, they're there. Forest, black alder, FT. So let's do the FT. No. SM, black alder field. No. Forest. And which one is it? 01. Black alder forest 01 PP. And let me take a look at that one. SM black alder forest 01 PP. Okay. That's messed up, man. Messed up, I said. This one. All right, I got that one done, I think. I don't know if that's right, but we'll see what happens. Right? It did it. It did it. Because look, I did draw them, right? But it just, you know, they're ugly. And I can clear those, remove. And I can remove those ones too, remove that one. And I'm going to fix that one too. So this one is FT. I'm not going to do them all because that's a pain in the ass, but I'll do SM black alder field 03. There we go. PP. Oh. All right, so let's try this out. Let's put them back. All right, so how it should work is not like this, okay? So one problem that I have is if I was going to take these two things and then paint them, I get this. I get like a massive amount, and they're massive, like they're really tall and stuff like this, right? And if I was to paint a lot of them, like it'd be like this. Now there's missing materials, clearly. They're missing a lot of stuff because you know, they're not imported properly, okay? However, one thing to note is that they're very dense, right? It's very, very dense. So I can undo that. And when I click on these two things here together, what I can choose is a couple of options. One of them is the brush size. The other one is the paint density and the erase density. So if I hover over paint density, it says the density of the foliage to paint. This is a multiplier for the individual foliage type's density specifier. My recommendation for density, my friends, is, and I'm not joking around, is 0.01. Like really not dense, 0.01, something like that. Brush size, not a problem. The other one is radius. So density is also something you can apply here. Like I want to make this like 30. It's really low because this says the painting density itself. Foliage instances will be placed at this density specified in all instances of 1,000 by 1,000 unit area. So it says the density will be like 30 for every 1,000. That's what it means, okay? Radius is how much space is it between foliage instances. So I want to space this out maybe by another 20, right? So space them out. And then the other part we want to try and do is, this is the placement. I definitely do not want to check align to normal. So please uncheck align to normal. Otherwise, if you put it on the side of a mountain, it'll actually like point this way. It'll be wrong. You want it to be all straight up. So we don't want to align to normal, typically. Okay, unless it's like grass. Grass, you can align to normal, but not this stuff, not trees. So ground slope angle is one thing. Height, it goes from a minimum to a maximum, right, that you see here. And if I was to uncheck these ones, say do one at a time, then you're also going to see a scale X. So if I click both of them, right, then you can see scale X, this is 1 to 1. For example, if I find the scale is too big, I can modify the scale. Let's say I want trees that are half the size to like 0.8 of the size, right? So that's like 80% of the size of the trees. So now if I go back, let's zoom back into that area, and I want to start populating trees here, as an example, then I can simply just click once and I can get in that area some trees. I'm not placing one, just my density is quite low. So you can see as I populate them, And again, assuming that you had areas here or trees that were more, you can create a little forest for yourself here, but based on this kind of stuff. There we go. Okay, so again, it's much less dense. One thing to note is on the left, you can see how many of these you're getting. So right now we're getting like 69 of one and 74 from the other. Again, I don't want to use too many because the more I use, the more I'm kind of placing at the same time. Next, let's try this out with a character and see what they see, right? So here's what they see. So here we go. I'm going to run towards this little forest I made. And positive and negative, right? I mean, clearly we're not seeing our materials, and that's fine. But can I walk through the tree is the question. And the answer is yes. Take a look. I'm walking right through the tree. So why is this happening? Well, on the left, right? So it says no collision is the preset, right? No collision. And that's bad. You don't want the things to not collide. That means like I'm going to pass through the trees. Now, no collision makes sense for things like grass, okay? You don't want like grass to like actually collide and stop you from walking, right? But no collision on the trees, that makes no sense. But by default, it's off. So let's put these on. If I put block all, by the way, block all is world static objects are blocked. That's kind of a standard. And I've clicked both of those two things now. Both of these two things, and it modifies those two things. So again, save the level, and if I press play, does it change it automatically, or do I have to replace them? Right? So let's see what happens. So if I run, la 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 la, and if I go through a tree, blocked, right? Nice and easy. Because I don't want the trees to be something I can run through, right? There we go. All right, there we go. So that's how the trees would look. And it's not bad in terms of like the lighting. I wish the textures were there, but they're not. But that's okay. All right. So that's how you put foliage down with trees. And what I recommend is this. When you do your foliage for your assignment for next week, small amounts, sparse. Start sparse. Because, again, the more trees you add, you're adding static meshes to this level. It doesn't matter if it's nanite or not, right? Nanite will replicate everything and stream the texture and the mesh to you, which will reduce the overall load. However, it doesn't matter if you add too many of this stuff, your machine will chug, especially if you build this level one day, right? So keep it light, make sure that they mean something, the trees that are put in place, and test out what it looks like with your character, okay? Now, what I want to layer this with, I'm sure the other one is just as bad as this one, right? I want to try the other thing. Let's go to, instead of Black Adder, I'm wondering if, I'm sure you guys have checked European Beach, and it's probably the same. Let's check out this one and see if we have a texture for this one or a mesh. Because if Beach is working, I'll just use Beach instead of Black Adder. Alder. Black Adder. It's Black Alder. If I can speak. Black Alder. I like that it's taking a long time, but that's not how, By the way, if you ever load this from Fab, it takes like 5 minutes for it to actually, import into Unreal Engine. So maybe this was a bad decision on my part. I'm like, I'll just give it to them, right? And then, of course, it didn't load everything it needs to load. Yeah, good try, Tom. Is it? Nope, this one has the material, the mesh. So Beach has it. European Beach is good. Black Alder did not. So this is good. So that's what I'm going to do now is I've got a couple of dead trees. That's what I have here. And I'm going to put some live trees in here. So I'm going to take, wait, what happened to the image?
That's what happened. We went off of it.
Well, I'm going to drag and drop and see what happens there. Okay, so then I'm going to print on this thing and then uncheck. If you uncheck the other ones and you only check this one, right, then let's see what it does. Does it actually add in everything or does it miss? I'm going to come over here where I don't have any kind of thing. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But, so there's something that happens. Like, these things are very tall, right? And so it kind of maybe not makes any sense for this thing. You can definitely put them in there. but I mean, it's like interspersed with everything else. You have some like really tall trees and some smaller trees. And I think what I'd rather do, let's just undo those adds. I can just undo by Control Z. Then, again, I probably do one of these controls. I probably want to change the scale for this one down to like, let's say 0.5 to 0.8 max. So a good range to randomize scale. They'll also want to check to see that it's block all. That's important. And I also don't want, to align to normals. I don't want that. So definitely align to normal should be off. Random yaw means it does rotate it by every time you paint it. So that's pretty good. So let's try this again. And maybe it's a little better. So if I kind of paint some of this, there we go. And you can see that you get a bit of, trees that get added a little bit. You can also add individual instead of you adding the ones like this. There we go. So you can see I get some large trees, I get some small trees until I get kind of this effect. And if I press play now, you've got some dark trees and you got some lighter trees because the lighter trees are the ones with no shader, right? But you can clearly see how this is pretty good, right? Now these ones have come out completely black. So that's the problem with the beech trees. They're like actually black. They're black trees, all right? So we have some zombie trees and we have some dead trees, black trees, okay? That's what we have right now. Okay, now again, if you actually downloaded this pack right from Fab, you wouldn't have this. But the great thing is the lighting is pretty good. Like I'm getting pretty good lighting effects for what I'm seeing here. Okay, so the shadows and all that stuff. And it looks pretty good, like in terms of like how it looks from afar. From down in here, it looks like I'm in a forest. Kind of a photorealistic area. So I've added trees, and you have to forgive me for the shaders. I don't have the shaders in place, and some of the materials are missing. That's fine. This is just a demo. What I want to do now is I want to add in grass and that kind of stuff. Let's see what the plants look like. Again, I'm going from big to small, right? Now, some people, before they add grass, also add in rock. I think that's a good idea, actually. Let's add rock in there as well. So rocks can also be painted as foliage, right? You don't have to add individual rocks. You could if you really wanted to, but why? If we're going to be able to, add them in here. So again, if I was to go back to content, and if this, I think it's under, in this case, under Fab, Megascans, and if I go into 3D, then you have in some rocks. Now, there's some rocks and cliffs. So if I go to rock, and if I look at it, the rocks kind of look like this. So rocks, right? And I want to kind of disperse rocks here and there around the mountains, right? A little bit more. So I'm going to grab this rock and pull it in. Let's see if I actually get the mesh and everything else. Let's try this again. So one thing is that it's not foliage, right? This is not foliage. So one thing is, if I want to make this into a static, I want to use a static mesh now to paint instead of this. Notice that if I drag and drop it here, it does add it. It creates the foliage asset for me, right? Now, here's something. I want to uncheck the other one. Make sure you uncheck the other trees because I don't want any of these to come out because I don't want more of those. But I want rocks. And if I kind of drag rocks around, they will appear randomly, all right? So they will do the same random disbursement, right? So this is how it looks. Not bad. But there may be not a lot of them, right? And that's okay. I don't care about having a lot of rocks, but you can see that there's rocks dispersed here and there throughout the forest. And again, one thing you want about rocks, if you click on the rock itself, is you don't want, you definitely don't want the material or the collision to be none. You want it to be block all. Now, here's something. Do I want to align rocks to normal? Like, do I want the rock to stick out of the side of the mountain? Maybe, because rocks are different than trees, right? So I want to try and do some of that too. So let's add in. Let's also make my brush bigger, just to make it so it's quicker. Because now I can increase my brush size a bit, and so now I can brush more rocks throughout the area here and see what that looks like. Again, one thing to note is if I don't like this, I can always delete them, right? I want to see how this feels, right? So that's what I'm doing first. I'm kind of dispersing some of these random rocks around. And notice I'm just doing one asset at a time. You don't have to do that. You can definitely add in more rocks or more assets. One thing is that they're all random, so they kind of come in a random place. Let's try and play this and see what my character feels, and let's see if it's too much or if it looks unnatural, right? So I got a rock there, and I got another couple rocks. It looks unnatural, right? And I'm walking right, well, I can walk partly right through them. Look, depending on how they are, like I can, let's see. This is pretty good. My IK is working okay right there. So I got a couple rocks, and they're dispersed throughout the level. And you're going to see like the rocks don't mean anything right now, but because once we add the grass, then the grass will be around the rocks, and it'll make it so that it won't look as bad. Okay. One thing we could also do for rocks is we can make them bigger and smaller. Like right now, their only scale is like this, but I can go from a small scale like this to double the size, so 2 times the size, right? So rocks can be some big rocks and some small rocks. So we have some variation instead of the way we've done it. So let's try it again, and let's add some more rocks. But let's add some rocks that are bigger and some smaller ones. And you can see that if I continue to do that, you get some rocks all around, and this one type of rock that I'm adding. And let's also just change my, I change some of this down so we can put them over here as well. We have some rocks that are just strewn about. And again, this is kind of like debris is what you're getting from the mountain or whatever. And it might add a little bit more realism when we add our grass to the level. Okay, so that's one rock. Let's add some other ones. So that's rock granite, and there's another rock granite that's in here. Here's another one, smaller. So I want to do the same thing with this one. Just drag it in. And then now we have another rock granite, and I want to uncheck the other one. I don't want to have more of these. I want to have just these ones, so I check this one out. And then I can scroll down here and do the same kind of thing. It's line to normal is good. I want the rock to be from scale 1 to scale 2, so kind of bigger rocks and smaller rocks. And I definitely want the collision to be block all. That's important. And as I scale up again, then I can kind of put some of those rocks down. So again, put some rocks down, some bigger rocks and some smaller rocks around the area, around the mountain. And it's interspersed along the trees, which is pretty good. And as you can see, just like I said earlier, with this landscape stuff, it is an iterative process where you're going to have to see what this stuff is like. If you don't like this, you can also place individual rocks or individual trees by going single. So there's a single option up here, this single button. It allows you to place individual single rocks and single trees in specific spots if you want to create a pattern or you want to create a certain look. You can also modify each tree and each rock by themselves. So for example of this, if I scroll down, right, and I'm kind of in here, like right, zoom in, and let's suppose I want to put these 2 rocks together because I don't like the fact that they're all dispersed. Like I want to put all these 4 rocks together. Then I can click select, and I can select an item in here, and I could use selection mode to move these together to create a bigger rock if that's what I want, right? So I can kind of do that and make really, or maybe I want to put rocks I don't like where this is. I want to put it next to the tree. Like for example, one of the rocks that we have here for this one is maybe it'll block. Sometimes I get these weird things with the bottom of the tree. Take a look at that. That's not good. So I like to put rocks there or grass or whatever. And I can also duplicate just like we normally use mesh, right? So I can put as many of these as I want. I can, kind of change the stuff around here and continue to iterate until, again, I'm happy with this thing. And so that, it looks more realistic as opposed to what we're having. And this is kind of doesn't look good. I actually want to put the tree down, so you can do that too. You can kind of put the tree down closer in the ground, and this is where you can do some pruning and go through individual assets like this, because you know what, it's a process that we're using with Unreal Engine, and as a technical artist, you have to be able to come through each of the areas of the forest and slowly adjust things. You can also change the angle of the tree and a bunch of other stuff, individual assets wise, until you're satisfied with how everything works for you. As an example. Okay, so I want to show you that. So now we've got rocks and we've got some trees and some rocks that are sticking out. I want these rocks to be in the ground. I can do that. So I can do that. And so some of these rocks can look a little better if they're buried a little in the ground and they're kind of more, as opposed to them being kind of out like this. You can bury them in the ground more and they look more realistic and much nicer, but it helps you put some of the rocks down as opposed to you putting individual rocks down by hand. I think it's a little bit easier for you to use the paint tool to do that. Awesome. Okay, so I've got kind of started on this stuff. Now it's grass. So same thing. So in the grass, I have other things for you here as well, where if you go to plants, under plants, you're going to see that there are a bunch of them. Hopefully none of this messed up. So far the rocks look good, just the trees were weird, right? So there's some clumps of grass that I have here, and I want to pull all of these clumps in. So I want to kind of drag these in here like this. Definitely uncheck the rocks. I don't want more rocks being here, but I want to definitely check these ones. Now these ones I don't want collisions on, so I don't want, so this should be no collision. And definitely I want it to align to normal. So this could be like on the edge of a, rocks can be, or grass might be on the edge of a, on a mountain, and they might point this way. It's okay, right? You can also align each individual mesh that you want to put in there. But for now, I want to kind of disperse the grass here. I want a thicker disbursement than what I had before. I can also do some variation here in scale. So again, make sure that you have all three assets aligned and checked, right? So they're all selected, is what I'm saying. There we go. And once they're selected, then what I can do is I can modify each of their scales at the same time. So I want to make some grass that's a little bit smaller and some grass that's a little bit bigger, 1.2. And I want to increase the density that we had for grass because I think grass density should be a little bit more. So click individual items, and you can see that the density here is pretty good for grass, 100. So it's going to be good. And let's click them all. They're all 100. And then if I click on paint, you can see that the paint density is still 0.01. Let's move that up to like 1 and see what that looks like when I paint. So you can see that immediately I get this. And that's just me painting grass. And I'm going to do that more. So paint the grass. And I'm going to keep on painting the grass over these grassy areas. And this is one type of grass. I definitely want to add more types of grass as I continue to paint stuff that's a little bit more than this. So again, you want to kind of put in, this is like 3 types of grass that I'm using right here. And I want to just do more variations in here than less. Because grass, if you actually look at real life, real life grass is a lot more varied and less, kind of homogeneous when you look at it, right? So as you kind of go through, look through it, and then see what it looks like. So this is kind of what the grass looks like right now. We got some areas that are grassy, and then we can add another type of grass, right? Looking pretty good. All right, so let's go for another type of grass. I've given you some grass. I want to uncheck these again. I don't want these checked, so I uncheck them all. And then you can see I've already added in 6,400 or 6.4 hundred, 6,000 pieces of grass in 1 second. Like it's really a lot, and there's no way you'd want to do this on your own, like one step at a time. It just takes too long, right? Although I'm sure people do that. All right, so that's clumps. This one, let's see if there's another clump. Here's other clumps. I want to use these ones now. So I'm going to pull these ones in. There we go. And these ones are all selected. So I want to select all these. And I want to check them all. And just like we did before, I want to go down and do that 0.8 to 1.2. Make sure that these ones are unchecked. These other pieces of grass, just these ones are checked, right? And now that I've got that checked, let's make sure that I got the right grass. I meant to do these ones, this one. There we go. Okay, these are all checked. This one I want uncheck. I don't want that one checked, and these ones are checked. So again, sometimes what I find is it's too confusing, so I just go to list, and then I can decide to check or uncheck the ones I want, because this is more control than I find in the pictures, the images, the thumbnails. And then the good thing is you can still do the same thing, so 0.8 to 1.2, some good variation in size. And then I definitely want the paint density to be what I have, which is 0.1 or 1. If I make it too dense, then I find that just too much grass. So as I paint, and I want to continue to paint grass, but only add a little bit at a time, because I want to be able to see what the effect is going to be, and then I can always undo or remove, areas that I don't like. So again, I'm adding it in one area. This is my little test, my little vertical slice, or my beautiful corner that I want to kind of present, as an example. And I'm kind of adding this grass, and to see what it kind of feels like when I do this stuff. Right? Okay. All right, let's try our character and see what it looks like for the character. So he comes closer, and we can see that it's not bad, right? Looks like a grassy area. I wouldn't mind if there was tall grass as well. And this rock looks a little bit out of place. I might want to sink that into the ground. It looks like it's kind of sitting on top of this hill. And I think I can do that by going back. It's pretty good. So I get some light grass, get some dark grass, and it's starting to come along slowly, slowly. All right, so now that I've got that, I'm going to go back to thumbnails. Oops, let's go back to list actually. Uncheck those all, and back to thumbnails. And I'm going to go into the tall grass. There's some tall grass I got for you too. And try that out. At least this stuff seems to work. Hallelujah. All right, and I put those in. And make sure, again, what I would do is put it in the list form and make sure that it's all selected. That's good. And then what I want to do with this, with the tall grass, is I want to do the same thing that I did with the other ones, which is, now that I've selected them all, then I can go down here and check the ranges. So again, 0.8 to 1.2. I want to make this tall grass a little bit more dense, perhaps, than what I did before. So again, what I want is I'm going to go to the top here. Instead of 1, let's make it like 2. So double the density of this tall grass. There we go. Well, he only does 1, so that's fine. So it's as dense as it's going to get, basically. But it's just this part here that is as dense as it's going to get. So let's do that. So I'm going to pull out here, and now let's see what this looks like when I start painting this tall grass, right? And there we go. Slowly, slowly, it's coming. And again, what I want to do is it's starting to kind of paint in. You can see I got like 1,600, something like that. And then I'm adding more and more of this tall grass until I feel confident that this is what I want to do. So I think you get the picture. I've been trying to show you this stuff because for your assignment 1, I want these layers. I want for you to go from big to small. All right, I want to start off with the landscape. Then from there, maybe you want to add features to the landscape. Like I've also given you some other features here from last week. Okay, so some of this is like, if I go to 3D, I can go back to selection mode. I wouldn't go do this in paint mode by any means. And then you can go like, a huge Nordic coastal cliff and then pull some of these in, right? So again, you can see that is massive, right? And it also is a side, right? So one thing is that you can't really leave it like this because you'll expose the other side to it, right? So what you can do is, I'm just going to change my camera to a lot faster for this one. And what I want to do is I want to position this thing so that it takes the place of my cliff side that I already have. So back in here, there, I'll pull this up. And what I want to use this for is, because it's way better than anything I could paint, right? Or even probably you can paint, is this, right? It actually produces like a, you know, kind of like this side here. And what we can do is we can use this in combination with what we've done to kind of create a more realistic, you know, kind of effect based on the variability of rocks as opposed to, you know, kind of like, you know, the sculpt that we've been using before. So that's kind of like way better looking. And I can duplicate that. I can alt drag that around and I can adjust it so that it might look really good in places, you know, as opposed to what we had before. Make sure that you can't see through it. Like this part would be having to be buried. You can also scale it a lot differently. So let's put this a little bit down and move this in a little bit and more down. And so you can't see the other end of it. That would be bad, right? Until you get the desired effect. Maybe even rotate it a bit. So yeah. And more. And maybe even make it slightly smaller, which means I'd probably make it smaller from let's change the size, uncheck that. Until you get the desired effect. And if it doesn't work on a surface, you can take it off. There's a lot of trial and error, my friends. I mean, it is what it is. But you learn, like I said, by doing. And there isn't a better way to do this than just to, you know, try and make it work. And maybe the P doesn't work here, so maybe I'll delete it. Like I don't like it, you know, and I'll put something else. So there's other ones we also downloaded here for you, like this one. This is a big cliff. And this also is another piece like that one. Let's just change the speed of my camera to low. And let's just remove this and put it down so that way it's kind of in the rock. And we'll angle it so it kind of fits a little bit more. And put it down. So it kind of takes up a little bit more space. It makes it a little nicer, breaks up a little bit of the color that we had inside the rocky area there. It makes it look way better than what it was before. And again, you can keep on adding some of this stuff to take the place of, remember, because you've blocked out your scene with these other rocks, and what you can do is you can add in other rocks like this as you see fit and as it makes sense to do as you continue to build your world. And of course we want to check to see how this looks. So let's play with our player and let's see if this looks any good or if it looks worse. And if it doesn't look good, we take it out. So always check to see what it looks like from a player perspective, you know, that kind of stuff. And there we go. So it looks pretty good actually. I like that a lot more than my cliff that I had before. It looks like way more natural stone. And then as I'm starting to build, I probably would cover this entire mountain with some of this stuff. So we've done grass, we've done trees, we've done that kind of stuff. I talked about 2 features that I want from you, which means 2 buildings or statues or something that you can build. Hopefully you're going to work with somebody else, so each person does their own. That's what I want you guys to try and do. But I think you can make it look really natural looking, and it can really look great. It just takes some time. Like you can see, like I can keep going here for hours, and I'm not going to stop, right? And you can certainly pull in additional assets and everything else to make this look great. Questions around foliage, rocks, stuff. Highly recommend you get stuff from places like Fab, if you can, without paying for them, okay? The unfortunate part for you guys, yeah?
Just to confirm, the buildings that we make, they don't have to have interiors, right?
Well, I mean, they gotta look like, they can't be like blank. right? So they get, I mean, some kind of material, some kind of texture that makes sense. I would be careful about tiling and stuff like that and how that looks. You have to check it out. Yeah, they should be fully tiled and textured, yes.
You did say to the access we did, you gave the temple
That temple's mine,
Okay.
so you have to do your own. That was my example, so please use some of your, if you want to use that in addition to that, you want to use my temple, go ahead. But I think it's,
The assets that you used made for that, like put all that spreadsheet.
if you want to do that, if you want to use the pillars and stuff from the temple, go ahead. Like that's up to you, but it won't count towards your thing. You need to make your own, right? So, but hopefully, like I said, what this will do is slowly you build up a thing. I want you guys to work in pairs if you can. It's a lot, okay? This is one project. You got 2 more to do, and this is going to take you, like I said, hours of work in terms of everything you put together. I don't see this, like I just spent like what, 3 hours almost with you just now, right? And we didn't do anything. Like this is not even like, I didn't even did the whole corner. I just did like this little area. And I'm thinking I have to go back and modify rocks and rotate them and all this kind of stuff and add more of this stuff. This can take you just this part, hours and hours. So please work with your partner while you're doing this. Maybe they're building a building of some kind or whatever it's going to be. I know that people have built Stonehenge. I think that's one of the things. You know, and the stone heads, what are they called? Moas? Moe. There we go. You know, other people like that, and they start putting things in. Other things you can do before we go for the day is add in water and add in other kinds of effects. I'm going to show it to you, but I don't have a chance to go over it with you. There are some tricks to this. So if I go to plugins, I'm not sure if you've seen the water plugin, but it does exist. So if I type in water, under plugin, there is the water plugin right here. Okay, so it does exist. All right, so there's the water plugin. It says it's experimental, but it's actually really good, right? And once I have the water plugin, let me just make sure I file save all, because I want to do that. If I don't do that, my map will be lost. I don't want that to happen. I don't want to do all that work I just did. It's going to be gone, right? If I don't do that, save. So here's my plugin, and I'm going to restart my Unreal Engine editor, right? So one thing about the water plugin is that it gives you other options that you can add in, right? It's another type of landscape tool that you can use. And you can create things like rivers and lakes and that kind of stuff. There is another way I want to specify too for water. Some people, what they do, especially for water, is they use a flat plane and they find a great water texture, right? And that is way computationally less expensive than what we're going to do here, right? Because if I do what I'm going to do here with my water, it's going to increase how difficult the scene is to render because it's dynamic water, right? So be careful when we do this. So now once I've added that in, right, here's my water, then from a tools perspective, right, as an example, or if I want to add stuff to my world, right, so let's go back to adding things. So here you can see that I have, you know, I can place different things like geometry and stuff like that. And there's going to be some volumes that I can add in, right? If I search for water, you can see that there's water, body, island, lake, ocean, and river. Let's add an ocean. So I'm going to drag an ocean in here, right? And when I do, now it's going to add in a bunch more stuff. You got to take your time for this for it to happen. But what it does is it did this. Take a look. It actually added in, I'm going to change my perspective here. It added in this ocean and completely flattened my geometry, right? Why? Because what it does with the ocean is it adds in these points. Here it is, right? And what you can do with this is you can change the height of the ocean. The water body ocean itself, the instance of the water body ocean, has a lot of extents. You can change how far it goes and all that kind of stuff as well. But there are a ton, and I mean it, a ton of these things where you can change the spline and how the ocean is built one step at a time until more or less of your geometry is showing. Okay, so again, I'm going to go way out here to show you this. You can see that some parts have remained in my level. It's interesting, the level 2 loaded. Let's go back to that. I want to load the other level. Let's go open. Let's get rid of that water asset for a second. It loaded the wrong level because I didn't change my level loading. So I'm just going to remove this one in the water zone. Yeah, delete that and delete this. There we go. Sorry, I meant to go to, let's just change my project settings, and I'll go to maps and modes. I forgot to do this. I'm going to change my level start to 3 because that's what I just made. All right, so let's open level, and I'll open 3. Let's try this out. So this is my, I'm going to not save this one. And I'm going to go back to this one. So this is the level that I had. There we go. And you can see I've only kind of done this part. And now I want to add in that water. So again, I'm going to go to quickly add to project. And if I type in water here, after I've added the plugin, there's lots of options here. So, so there's a water zone and there's a body ocean. Okay, so again, if I pull it in, what it does is it adds in the ocean around this stuff and flattens stuff out. It takes a second. It's really chugging for me. But it basically adds in an ocean, creates an island like this, right? And again, what you can do is so chugging, like crazy chugging. So now, if you click on these little control points, right, you can move this stuff and create your islands here. And by the way, you can add more control points as well. There we go. But what it did is it flattened out a lot of my other regions because I don't care about that. I've created almost like a little island, right? So I can move this out a little bit. And then when I do, more of my geometry will come out, you know, as opposed to less. So that's not exactly what you might want, okay? But what it did was added an ocean around this island. And again, no matter how I make this, I make it bigger and bigger until I'm satisfied with how big this part is. Okay, so you can see here the oceans around me. If I press play, I just want to show you what this looks like here for a second. Oop, I fall off the world. But if I press play, I can kind of run to the ocean now. And you can see that part of my world has been kind of killed by the ocean. All right. By the way, there are a ton of tutorials online on how to use this, make things like rivers and all this kind of stuff. This is way too far. But you can definitely sculpt along with the ocean. Now, what happens is if you go closer, this is a really cool part about the ocean. Take a look at this, guys. It's really cool. Like, it's got like waves. You can do wave control. A lot of really cool things here. And it's all part of the water plugin that you can explore. It's pretty awesome. And like I said, you don't have to just use this. You can add in, let's just reload the level because I don't have to accept this. I can just like say open level 3, and then don't save, and then it'll just reload everything the way it was before we added the ocean. So this is back to where we were, right? So now let's try, instead of ocean, let's try adding in a river or something like that instead. So again, if I go back to here, and if I go water, and there's also a lake. So let's try a lake. Actually, I like lake. It's pretty good. So there's my lake. And let's see what that looks like. And you can see that that lake, I can move the entire lake over to kind of closer to what I was doing. There we are. There we are. And then I can modify some of these control points to make the lake larger or smaller, right? And if I was to press play, now I have a little lake. It's less destructive than what I had before, but little lake that I had that's kind of right next to my land. Now notice also something else. Notice that the grass seems to recede and I get more and more detail. That's because of level of detail, right? So you can change what your camera can perceive. There's my lake. Here it is. Notice that I'm like on top of my lake until I get to a certain point. So at the side, notice that I want to be inside my lake, but then I get these weird kind of camera effects where, because what right now, there's some additional options I have to change from my lake to get it to look and feel good. Okay, but it's not bad. The color's pretty good, you know, for what I got going on, and it's, you know, things that I can explore. One more thing before we go. I'm sorry, I know we're running over time, but just give me 1 second. So again, I'm just going to load my level again. Again, you can always do this so you don't have to kill your level, or you can make copies. I think it's also a nice way to do it. Like make a duplicate of your map so you don't mess it up, and then try different things out with water effects and that kind of stuff. I think you have a lot more control this way than what you would normally do. So let's try this again. Let's go to here and let's add in water, and this time we'll add in a river. And here's the water body river. It's going to take a second for it to render. Mine's chugging. There it is. Oh yeah, chugging, my friends, chugging. So it's really cool, like what it did. It kind of made one of these, which is kind of cool. And then, so if I click on the water body river, I have these control points, just like before. These are splines. So I can move these splines to make the river flow in a certain pattern. But you can see how much it really killed my performance. Like, I don't know about you, but for me, it's like killing my performance, killing. So one thing is, if you want to add more points, notice that over here you have these keys, input keys and stuff, and you can, each individual spline is what we're looking at. These are spline points, and you can go to the next spline and next point, whatever, but you can add in additional points by alt dragging. It's just my system here at the school is really slow. So alt drag from a point, you can add more points, right? Until you can make a river. Again, let's see what that looks like. So if I was going to play, I mean, this is where I experiment and see what that looks like. And then once you have the river, one thing that you can do is you can change the geometry around the river, the landscape. You can see how much my performance is crazy bad right now. But water, my friends, because it's a caustic surface and it's using you know, a different way of doing things, does take a lot of your computational power, right? And so all I'm saying to you is be wary of this. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's like, it can look really cool if I was going to render a scene. Like I was taking like some kind of reel, but I wasn't. But when in real time play like this, I don't know. Like, I have to have pretty good power. And this card, which is a 3070 I have in here on these machines, they can't take it, right? So you could change the level of I could go to settings, and one thing I could do is I could change my world settings for some of this stuff, like because it's too crazy, right? Like, I mean, my rendering settings are like crazy bad, right? So here's my engine scalability. I could go from epic, which is what it is right now, to high, and then see what that looks like, see what it feels like. And if that warning goes away, which is what's happened, then I can try that and see how it feels. This is still bad. How it feels from a playability perspective. So this is on my machine from a high as opposed to epic. But it looks really, really good. I like the fact that there's caustic effects. There's a caustic shader on top of the water, so it looks like there's rocks that are inside the riverbed and that kind of stuff. So really great ways of doing things. You can add things like rocks and other things, and probably paint a little bit more soil, sand in that area. Maybe have different textures until it creates the look and feel that you're looking for, right? One more thing, I swear. One more thing, okay? Here's the last thing I want to tell you. There's another great plugin that you can try and use, all right? And if I type in landscape or land, there is a landmass plugin that's also included by default with the water plugin. So the water plugin also uses the landmass plugin, which is using splines to do your, instead of you sculpting like you did with your sculpt tools, you can put down a landmass material and use splines to sculpt mountains and that kind of stuff, which is pretty cool, right? So because it's already included, then like I did before, if I type in land here for a thing, you can see there's a landmass actor that I can add in, and I can do the same kind of thing that I did before. So let me just zoom out of here for a second. There's my river. Oh yeah, my performance. Video memory, it says, has been exhausted. I'm over budget, you know, because it's crazy. And I can kind of shift my scale down to medium. The more I go down, though, then I lose fidelity when it comes to things like rocks, and my level of detail goes way down. But now performance is back to where I can manage it, right? So what I can do here is I can do the same thing. I can add in land. Here's landmass actor. And when I do, yes, when I do, it slows me down even more. But what it does is basically allows me to modify this, right, as an example, by adding different splines between these two actors. Let me just try this again, and I'll undo those two, and then let's add in land again. Thinking about if I do a manager base. That's the way it works. No, I have to add in a landmass altogether, and this isn't the way to do it. So, but anyways, the point is that it does exist, and you can do the same splines. The point is, what it gives you these. They give you these splines, and it allows you to modify your landmass. Instead of using sculpting tools, you can do it with splines. Okay, which is kind of cool. All right, so are we clear about what the requirements are for next week? Assignment 1, due next Friday during Global Game Jam. All right. Here's my pitch to you guys. All right. If you come out to Global Game Jam, only if you come out, I'll move your due date. So if you stay home, forget it. Right? No, I'm joking. If I move, no. If I'm going to move all my due dates for Global Game Jam to the Monday, to give you guys an extra day, all right? So that way you don't have to do it. I want you guys to participate, so I don't want it to be a clash. So I will move the due date out for the assignment once across all the 3 courses, so that you can participate in Global Game Jam, all right? Even though Logan doesn't want to come. All right, guys, thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow, all right?